So great to have you on the show today, Tyson. I'm really excited to hear your story, especially because it sounds like you've had a fantastic business journey, working for over 30 years as a podiatrist, and in that time growing 20 different businesses and selling them. And I'd really love to hear about that, because I know so many people in the health space, they love what they do, they love their clients, they get into it for health reasons, but they really have trouble with the business side of things. And it sounds like you've had no trouble at all going through that journey over that time. You want to share a little bit about maybe how you started and what's driven you through that process of all those businesses in that time?
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say it came naturally. It's not.
Okay.
Well, it's one of those things that when I was at university, I was going to be an art teacher. That was my plan. I was going to be an art teacher, and my brother was doing dentistry at the time, and he said, "What are you going to do when you finish school?" So I'm going to be an art teacher. And he goes, "No." He goes, "I'm going to be a rich dentist. You'll be a poor art teacher." He goes, "I'll have a Porsche, I'll have a Volkswagen." So I went and saw my art teacher, and I said, "What sort of car do you drive?" She said, "I have a Volkswagen." "Why?" And I went, "Ooh." So, and I'd never really thought about money, career, or anything like that. Explained to my art teacher what my brother was saying. She said, "Look, go and do something else." So I spoke to my brother. She said, "Do anything in the medical field and you'll do okay. You'll make good money." So I went through everything and I went, okay, I want a job where no one ever dies and everything can wait till tomorrow. So that sort of limited what I could do. And podiatry just happened to be one of them. So that's how I got into it. And I had a friend who had started the year before me. So, but what was interesting, I wouldn't say the business side of things came natural to me. I had an interest in it. And the first business book I ever read was Noel Whittaker's Making Money Made Simple.
Ah, great.
And I read that, and it was the first time I really learned about compound interest and just how it wasn't sort of about setting up a business, but it was just the business world. That was my first sort of exposure to it. So from there, as soon as I graduated, I thought, well, I'm going to get a good job with another podiatrist working in a good business, and I'm going to learn some good podiatry skills, and eventually one day I'll have my own practice. So I went around, looked for a pile of work, and I couldn't find anything. There were plenty of jobs, but there were no jobs that I looked at that I went, I don't want to just be sitting in a little room just doing that part of podiatry day in, day out. That is not very exciting. So eventually I thought, I'm going to have to work for myself. So I set up my own business straight away. So I pretty much graduated. I got registered on the 18th of December, 1988. And I set my first practice up, I think it was the 26th of January, 1989.
Wow. So less than a month, or about a month later.
Yeah, 45 days or 40 days or something like that. Yeah. So it came about very quickly. So it wasn't planned, but as soon as I did it, I went, how hard can it be? And it was much harder than I thought. I think learning by trial and error is one of the most expensive ways to learn how to grow a business. But I bumped into a podiatrist who was on the Gold Coast at the time, who had been working about 7 years before me. He sort of took me under his wing, and he taught me a lot of things, taught me a lot of shortcuts, which weren't all good. But he did teach me a lot about just, timing and running your business a little bit better and your finances and that type of thing. So I learned a bit from him, but I still wasn't a great business person.
Yeah. And it sounds like so many of us, when we've started our first business, a lot of it actually is naivete. It's like, if I'd known how hard this was going to be, maybe I wouldn't have stepped into this. Sometimes the act of thinking it's going to be easy is actually what propels us forward. And once you're on that path, you've got to either make it work or not. But for you, it sounds like you found a mentor, you found someone who's going to give you at least a few of those first steps in that direction. And that's maybe what led you into it. How did your first business go then? Run that out for me. How many years did you last there, and what was it like?
The first business, I kicked it off in 89. I had it for about 3 years. And what happened though, everything was going well, and the business was slowly building up, and each year was getting better than the year before. And it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know until you figure out you don't know something. But then all of a sudden I got really, really bad dermatitis on my hands, and I was actually forced to sell the business because I couldn't work. Like, my hands were that swollen and bleeding and split open that I was actually forced to sell the business. I had to take a 2-year break on the sideline until my hands sort of got back in order, and they never ever came back to ever being perfect.
Wow.
So even at the moment, like, my hands, like, they look pretty damn good right now, as you can see.
Yeah.
But if you have a close look, you can still see there's always just that little bit of activity there. So what it taught me that I wanted to open up another business again, but I knew I had to do it differently to how I did it the first time. I couldn't rely on my health. I didn't know from 1 month to the next if my hands were going to be great, if they were going to be painful. So pretty early on, I started working out I had to employ somebody else to work with me to be able to work more when I couldn't work. So I just started putting systems together. So pretty quickly on, I ended up moving to Cairns in 92. And I probably only worked for I was up here for about a year not working. And then once I set my practice up, I was probably in business for about 12 months before I employed somebody else.
Yeah.
And I had them doing majority of the work and I was doing the work in the background.
It's like the health challenge itself forced you into a certain mode of thinking that otherwise, I think for a lot of business owners takes a lot longer to actually get to that stage where they're starting to employ other people and systemize. And it's, in a way, it's almost like that's an advantage to your business itself that your health had that challenge. I think that's fascinating, that kind of...
It sounds good in hindsight, but at the time it was terrible.
And I bet it was stressful too, was it? How did it feel?
It was really stressful because you didn't know from 1 week to the next what your hands were going to be like. And also when you're in pain with your hands, it affects your mental attitude. It affects your decision making. But I must admit, when your hands are sore and you have money in your bank account, you think a lot clearer than when your hands are sore and you don't have money in your bank account.
Yeah, and there's a truth right there. Absolutely. Because I know there'll be people listening to this who have challenges in their life. It's a natural part of business and of life, seriously. Yeah. Some of those will be health challenges and some of them will be other things. But being able to say, I had a challenge and I solved it, or I worked around it and came out of the other end with a business that was stronger and more systemized and made money, is still a fantastic thing to be able to say.
Oh, having the health problem and deciding that I need to put systems in place really early. Yeah, like I said, in hindsight now, I'm sort of like, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me because I was forced out of necessity that I had to come up with systems because I wasn't always going to be able to work. And I wanted whoever, so what had happened is when I had my practice on the Gold Coast, I had insurance and you have business expense insurance. So the insurance company paid me money so I could employ somebody else. And that person walked into my clinic, they had no idea what to do. Because I hadn't written anything down. I had no idea what was going on. I used to just fly by the seat of my pants. Every patient you do differently and you had things set up all over the place. So they sort of walked in and I'm trying to explain to them how I do things. There was no structure to anything. And it was just mayhem. So after 12 months when I was forced to sell, it was probably the best thing I could have done because I think the person that was working there, I think they ended up leaving. I think the person that was working there just went, this is so bad, I'm leaving. So they left. And there was a friend of mine too. And we're still friends, but I totally understand why they left. Yeah, it's amazing what you can come up with when you're forced to actually do it. But yeah, a lot of things for me actually changed when I'm a big believer in, like you need to go to events in your own profession. You need to rub shoulders with people. But I think you also need to attend events and things outside of your profession. You need to rub shoulders with people because for example, in podiatry, I can go to as many podiatry conferences as I want, but I'm constantly talking to podiatrists and they all think like podiatrists and they all have the same thinking. I go along to a dental convention. They've got different thinking. If you go to a massage convention, they think differently. You go to a podcasting convention, they think differently. And those different ideas you can take and apply back to your own business. And all of a sudden you start separating yourself from the pack who are all just huddled together. Yeah. Like in podiatry, you're going podiatry. And then you go over here and start doing something a little bit different. And they all look back and go, wow, how did you come up with that idea? That's so amazing. You go, no, I just started looking outside of the comfort zone or the circle that I'm in.
Yeah. And doing things differently to how other businesses have done it will give you a different result too. So if all the other podiatrists are doing things a certain way and you want to step up or sideways or outside of that sort of generic fold of podiatrists, looking for inspiration from other places is exactly the right way to do it. That's amazing insight to be able to look around, try something different and set yourself apart from the other people.
Yeah, and one of the things I went to was a business seminars. Yeah, like there were no podiatrists at the time, going back 20 years ago, that even thought about going to a business seminar. Yeah, like a 2 or 3 day weekend workshop on running a better business. It was sort of just unheard of. And I went to this one event, and this one event just changed my thinking on everything, and my business almost doubled within 3 months after this one event, which is why I'm a big believer in you need to attend so many different things. You need to listen to different speakers, because that one person will make one comment that will change your life.
Yeah, and change can happen in that instant if you've got the right environment and the right input happening for you at that time. Hey, it sounds really good.
And the one thing they said to me was, they said to everybody, write down how much money you made last year. So write it down. Now write a goal, what you want to achieve this year. Somebody write it down. Now write down all the things you need to do to achieve that goal. All makes sense. So we did that. Then he said, okay, that money figure you've got down now, add an extra 0. And all of a sudden you heard everyone in the room go, oh. He goes, now what you wrote down from where you are to where you wanted to go, those activities you wrote down there, will that take you to the goal with the extra 0 on it? And everyone's going, oh no, yeah, and everyone's complaining. He goes, okay, let's say your wife, your kids, your family, everyone you love are in a room, someone's got a gun to their head, and they said, if you do not earn that new goal, we will kill everybody in your family. Now, it's very extreme, but he said, can you come up with a few more new ideas? And all of a sudden, it's like, well, yeah. And everyone's just yelling out different things. And we're writing it. So this list that you had of what you need to do just expanded 3 or 4 times. But what it wasn't so much that, okay, did I achieve a goal with the extra 0? No, I didn't. But what it did, it made me realize that these caps we put on ourselves, you know, we put a ceiling there. I'm here now, and this is my goal. Instead of saying, I'm here now, I want to go here or beyond that. And as soon as I got that, where it might be, by the 31st of December, I want to earn, $1 million. That's what we'd normally say. But instead, you should be going, by the 31st of December or sooner, I want to earn $1 million or more. And all of a sudden, it just takes it. It takes that.
The cap.
Takes the cap
off.
The
upper limit off. Yeah.
Because you might earn $1.5 million. Yeah. And you might do it by November. So as soon as he said all that, that totally changed my thinking on everything I did. And within about 3 to 6 months, my business doubled.
Fantastic.
And it just kept growing. It was just that one comment. That's the only thing I can remember from that weekend.
Isn't that amazing?
Was one of a few other funny things we did, but
the other thing about setting massive goals, I love it because I kind of think some people love to achieve their goals and they get really, really focused on it. And for other people, goals are really more like motivation. You know, we move towards the goal, but then even when we start getting close, we just set another one. We never actually get to the place where we're like, right, I'm in my goal territory right now. And I'm just going to kick back and not do anything else. We're always sort of setting them ahead. So the higher you set your goal, the more you achieve. Because even if you only get to 50 or 80% of it before you move the goal, before you start changing the goalposts, 50 or 80% of $1 million goal is still more than setting a $500,000 or a tenth of that, 100,000, and getting it. You're still going to get more achievement and move faster and further if you set big goals and then work towards them.
Well, the two things, I remember one person saying to me once, when you get to the end of the year, instead of setting new goals next year, just go back and finish the goals you haven't already achieved. Because we always get to the 1st of January and it's like, oh, what are my goals going to be this year? I don't know. What did you say last year that you didn't do? Start tightening all them up before you start moving on to the next big venture. But I think you're right. You need to set the goals really big, because if you don't quite hit it, you're still going to be better than if you hit really safe goals.
Yeah, I love it. Now, I want to just return a little bit to the practicalities of growing and selling these businesses, because this is fascinating to me, especially in a service-based business. And you've already sort of explained that you did systemise quite a lot and you're employing people. For a lot of our listeners, they might be in a position where they're employing other people. And I know a lot of them will also still be working hands-on in their business. Yeah. So I guess part of the discussion is, how can you sell a service-based business most easily? Must you systemise and not be working hands-on in it? Is that the secret?
No, I think if you want to, so I sold my last podiatry business for a record amount for a single podiatry sale in Australia.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was a good hefty sum. And the reason they bought it there were two things. One, I chose whether I worked in the business or not. So I had it set up in a way that if I wanted to work, I could, but I wasn't actually working in the business. I was working behind the scenes. But I could dive in at any stage if I really, really wanted to.
Yeah,
so
great.
If you create what I call assets for your business, which is every time you create a system or a framework or a model, you've just created an asset for your business. And every time you create a new system, framework, or model, you've created an extra asset. And it's those assets, when you put them all together, that's what the value of your business is. So when people are buying a business, they want to know that if they buy it in July, they want to know at the end of July, they're going to make X amount. They don't want to go, oh, when you owned it, it earned X amount, but now that I own it, it's only going to earn 70% of that because you're not here anymore. If all the systems and structures are in place and you've got all these assets that you've built over a period of time, that's what people will buy. People buy assets. And then once you start making money, you're just reinvesting that money back in. So an asset might also be, having the right equipment so that there's not, look at all the things that slow your business down. And if you're reinvesting money into equipment or people that speed up that process, and when someone comes to look at your business, all of a sudden they go, wow, they can see the value on what you're actually offering.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think that's the part people miss.
Yeah, and I've heard the advice sometimes too, that even if you are working for yourself or leading a team but you don't want to leave, treating the business as though you might want to sell it is a great way to still set up those systems just to make it easier for yourself and for your staff. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, I'm planning to sell next year now, quickly, let's arrange the assets and get everything sorted. It's just a good way to run a business.
That is a perfect point that I probably overlooked, that when I set up all these systems and did everything, I wasn't doing it to sell my business. I was doing it because it made my life easier.
Yeah.
And I was told at that same seminar that you should from day dot, when you set your business up, set it up as though you were going to sell it to somebody and make it as valuable as possible. And if you decide you never want to sell it, then you don't have to. But what you want to do is you want to have it set up to a point. If somebody walked along, knocked on the door and said, we want to have a look at your business, you can just go, boom, show them what you've got. And they go, wow, this is something worth buying. Not, oh, okay. And then you're sitting down trying to throw everything together and all they see is confusion. And you'll get paid far more if you have everything streamlined and running well than if it's all relying on you.
Yeah. And it makes your day-to-day life easier too. And your staff.
You can have holidays. And they don't ring you up.
That's right. And someone else can just step in and do the things that you normally do each week. It's great.
That's how I knew that I had everything right. I can't remember exactly what year it was. We went away for 3 weeks, went to Disneyland. And I came back, and over the 3-week period while I was gone, I never got a phone call. I never got an email. And I thought, well, obviously the clinic's burnt down and everyone's left town. I'll find out. I rocked up. Work was still there. The doors opened. I went, this is a good sign. And when I had a look at how everything ran, it probably ran to about 95% if I had been there.
How great. Yeah, that's perfect.
And I went, I need to take more holidays.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. And I reckon part of that is systemization, and part of it is also like the internal work you need to do to trust your staff. Because sometimes I feel like people might be good at systems. They might be good at being the boss and doing all that stuff. But sometimes, and I'm going to put myself in this category a little bit too, sometimes we just are a little bit control freakish and don't necessarily want to step out and have our staff succeed without us. It's like a little bit like, oh, I don't actually mean anything at all here. You got to be able to actually have that internal strength to trust the people around you.
Oh, no, I agree. I was a terrible micromanager. I'd say to people, yeah, look, this task is yours. And then you'd be looking over their shoulder every 5 minutes, making sure they were doing it right, instead of just letting them make mistakes.
Yeah.
And once they make a mistake, okay, help them fix it up so they don't make the mistake. It's only a problem when they make the same mistake 2 or 3 times and you've told them how to fix it and they constantly make the same mistake.
Yeah, and that's part of effective management.
You don't let them make the mistakes.
Yeah, and I remember going on holidays once in my old business for about 10 days. And when I came back, One of our clients had a big challenge that needed some help. This was a web design business, so it was like
Yeah.
a technical thing. And the client had come, talked to our admin lady, and she just sort of smoothed it over with them, given the developer some hours to fix it, come back, it was all sorted. And she never even talked to me. I was away, never even told me what was going on. I come back and I'm like, you know what? I probably would have solved it a little bit differently. But what I liked is that she had the outcome in mind that I would have also had. Now, the how to doesn't matter too much. I can train her on that. But what she had was the vision of, let's make this client happy and let's make sure that the tech stuff is working. And I'm happy to drag an asset, a developer off something else and make sure that this is fixed, prioritizing it, getting it sorted out. And then I just come back and literally it was a 5-minute convo. Oh, this person rang and I did this. And I'm like, sweet.
But that's what you want. You need to give it like you do need, I think as an employer, you need to become very outcome focused.
Yeah.
You need to train your staff. And that's why like I've moved a lot from systems more to frameworks.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, systems like ABCD, like it's like a set of processes that must be followed. And there's certain times when that you can't mess around with that. It's like if you were sterilizing instruments, they must be done a certain way. There is no flexibility. But a framework is more, you give them steps on what needs to be done, but they've got flexibility within each of those steps on what they're doing. As long as the outcome is still achieved and the goal's achieved, and they follow the steps, what they do within each step, I think gives everyone a little bit more freedom, and it gives 2 or 3 different people with different personalities. They can let their own personality shine.
Yeah.
It's not so strict and rigid. And that's where you see problems with some of these big companies where they are so inflexible that a problem happens and they go, no, sorry, that doesn't fit in our little box on what should be done. And they wonder why they annoy everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because the people that got employed who go, no, I must follow this rule. And you go, yeah, but this is slightly just outside of it. They go, no, I'm sorry. This is how it must happen.
So it's about empowering employees to use their own intuition and their own technical skills, like to use what they know is going to work to achieve the outcome, which I love. What about when it comes to the actual process of selling your businesses? You've sort of talked a bit about how they grew, how you systemized, that sort of stuff, but still growing and selling 20 businesses in 30 years still seems like a lot to me.
Yeah.
What was it that made you, after that first sale, think, geez, that was good fun. I'm going to go through the process of building and selling another one and then repeat that 20 times. Like, what was that like?
It was never planned. It was not. It wasn't what I planned. Like when I had my first one, I sold it out of necessity, and then just along the way, they sort of just happened. So it wasn't something that said, "Oh, I'm going to set up another one now and sell it." It's sort of just I opened them and I relocated some and I sold some and some I amalgamated a couple and then sold those. So it wasn't a planned attack that I'm going to set up and sell so many clinics over a period of time. It was just something that happened over a period of time, through the different situations. So like at one stage, I had my clinic in Cairns and I had a clinic in Mackay and I had a clinic on the Sunshine Coast. So they were 1,800 kilometers apart. So, and I'd had 2 clinics in Mackay. I had my first clinic in Mackay that I was in partnership with someone, and that didn't sort of really work out. And we sort of had a parting of the way. So then I set up a second business in Mackay against my first business. So the first one, I said I had a partner, and then I sold it to that partner, and then I went in opposition to my old business, and then I ended up selling that one. So it sort of just came about. It wasn't a planned attack on I'm going to have world domination. It's sort of just, there were good opportunities at the time. So Mackay came up as an opportunity and I went, wow, I'm going to jump on that. So I did. Sunshine Coast was the same thing. Then we had Smithfield and I helped someone set one up in Townsville. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Opportunities still come to people who place themselves in the way of opportunity though.
Oh yeah.
Got the kind of mindset that is good at running business and you're happy doing that. And it's something that, whether it comes naturally or whether it's something you've learned over time, you've obviously got a skill base that's there. If you were to look back over that 30-year period and look for what made it work for you, what's your one sort of superpower that's enabled business to work well for you and put you into the position you have had over that time, getting the opportunities and growing them, then moving them on when appropriate. What's that superpower for you, Tyson?
I'd say the superpower is I was always prepared to do the work. So I was never afraid of long hours, lack of sleep. That never scared me. And I was never afraid to fail, but I never failed because I'd always take calculated risks. So to me, I would always sit down if I was looking at a business or an idea, and I would say to myself, what is the worst possible scenario? What is the worst outcome that can happen? We put this amount of money in, and every patient in the world hates us, and nobody comes in, and we've got all these bills, and we can't afford to let me go broke. Can I handle that hit in my life right now? And if the answer was yes, I go, then let's do it. Because if that's the worst case scenario, then it's got to be better than that.
Yeah, it's never going to be that bad.
Never going to be that bad. The picture I would paint, and I always say, if I could handle that black, ugly, terrible outcome that I described, it's never going to be that bad. And if I can still live with that, then what if it's the exact opposite and it goes really, really well? So I think my biggest superpower was I could do the work. That was not a problem, but I had an ability of actually talking to my future self. So I would have a lot of conversations with my future self that I'd sit there and just have these thoughts going through my head as though I was talking to someone who was a year down the track going, okay, so what happened? Oh, you lost everything. Okay. You still married? Yes. You still got your other businesses? Yes. You still got your house? Yes. So I would never risk my house or everything I owned on a business venture. Yeah. But I would risk a proportion of it to go and try something else. And if it totally failed, I already had this conversation, what we were going to do if it failed. So there was no fear of failure.
I reckon it sounds great because I know that sometimes our head runs away with us. We're presented with a challenge or an opportunity, and it's like our brains naturally think of the worst possible thing that can happen. And sometimes we sit there just being really afraid. It's like it becomes overwhelming the more we let that fear grow. But if you actually step back and look at it a bit more logically and think like, literally, what is literally the worst that can happen? And you're sort of taking on board an acceptable risk. You're saying, well, I'm not going to lose the house. I'm not going to lose my family or my partnership. You know, what's the worst that can happen? And it's still bad. You don't want to make it seem light. Yeah, but it also can give you a bit of a reserve of strength. It's like, well, there is a safety net there. If I happen to fall off this trapeze, I've got something beneath that's not going to kill me. It might be a challenge, but I'm going to live. I'm going to keep getting through this. And sometimes looking at those worst case scenarios can be really heartening. And then also looking at what if it goes right? Not just what if it all goes wrong, but what if it all goes right? Well, that could be fantastic. Yeah. It's a great future.
And I think if you think of the worst scenario and you know it's never going to be as bad as that picture. So it's always going to be that or above. Yeah. And you think, well, if it's 20% better, oh yeah, we'll survive. But what if it's 50% better or 100% better? And you always, and that's why when you're doing business plans, plan for the worst, but expect the best.
Yeah.
So it's not, I never looked at it that it was a negative. I always looked at it that I was actually doing this as a positive, because if I could handle the worst scenario, then it was going to be good.
Yeah, I love that. And I love also that you've mentioned it's like that saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's like your superpower has been hard work, and that's what's brought around the opportunities and the business growth. Even when there are challenges, you've been able to work through them and sort them out because you're not afraid to actually put your head down and get things done.
Well, they always say, if you want something done, give it to the busiest person in your business, because it will get done, because they'll find the time to actually do it. Yeah. So it's even us doing this, having this conversation now, and I'm off to Canada tomorrow.
Yeah. How great is that?
Now I could easily say, oh, no, I can't do this because I'm too busy. I've got things to do and all that. But fitting in, you manage to fit it in because it's just what you do.
Yeah. And you
choose. Quite interesting.
Yeah, I love it. What about, it is interesting to talk about those early days, growing those businesses and selling them. One more thing I want to ask about that, and then I'm going to ask you a little bit about what you're doing right now. Oh, okay. But I guess the last thing I want to ask about that is for people who are in that process now, they might be running their own business right now, whether they're a podiatrist or a massage therapist or any other kind of health service professional. What would you say is the number one thing that people should do in their business to create growth? Like, what's your number one tip for
Okay.
people going through that process right now?
Number one tip is, can I show you a videoing this? So I can show
Yeah.
you something.
Yeah.
I'll just see this diagram
It
behind me.
is going to be on audio as well, so I'll just have to, or you can
Okay, so
describe
there's
it
a diagram behind me.
listening.
Now, if you want to see the diagram, go and watch the video. But
Yeah, that's it.
this diagram that's behind me, you see the thing right in the middle? That's you, okay? So that's the business owner. Now, if you draw circles from outside that, that's like 1 kilometer, 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers from where your business is. The reason I got this here, because this is the number one thing when I'm doing coaching with people, this is the number one tip I tell everybody to do. You need to get out of your business and you need to go and visit people. Yeah, if you're in the health industry, you need to go and visit every doctor, physio, chiropractor, podiatrist, anything, anyone that's in the health, dietitians. And I don't mean just go and see the ones that are closest to you. You need to go and see everybody. When I had my business on the Gold Coast, even though I had no idea what I was doing, the one thing that I did right, and it took me about 6 months or 3 to 6 months, I went and saw every single doctor, physio, chiropractor on the Gold Coast.
Fantastic.
I rang up, I made a time. Now, the reason I draw this diagram is I say that you see the people that are the closest to you first, and the people who are further out, you send them letters telling them you've set up in business and you're going to eventually get around to them. Just you're really busy at the moment seeing everybody else.
Yeah, great.
You may never get to them because you might end up too busy.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's no point sitting in your business hoping someone will send someone to you. When you can get on the phone, just start ringing. Now, sometimes it might take a month, 2 months, or 3 months before you can actually even get a booking with them because they're busy. But you don't know until you ask. So that's my number one tip is get off your bum and go out there and visit as many people as you can. Now, that's what I call professional referrers. Then you've got non-professional referrers. You can do the same thing. Your coffee shops, your hairdressers, your beauticians, all those people need some loving. And they're neglected, I think, sometimes. You just expect the local hairdresser to send people to you.
Yeah.
Or have you gone down there and said hello? Do they know who you are? If you walk past them, do they know your name? If they don't, then that means you're not putting in enough effort. So you need to get out there and visit people. So I'm glad I could show that to you.
Yeah, I love that. That's really great. And it does lead me around. You just mentioned you do a bit of consulting now, or a bit of coaching with other business people. Yes. I know you've got your own podcast called It's No Secret with Dr. T, and you've got a book as well, which I'm going to read the name out. It's No Secret There's Money in Small Business.
Yes, that was my second one.
Oh, that was your second one. So what was your first one?
It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry.
Ah, there you go. Fantastic. So what is it you do right now? Share a little bit about that with us.
What I'm doing now is, I do a lot of coaching and mentoring for like people in the health industry. So in the past, it was previously always podiatrist, but now I do a lot with dentistry. And I have dealt with a couple of other people, different sort of professions, physiotherapy and other things like that. It's all the same. Other than our hands-on work might be differently, but the actual running of the business is exactly the same. And I break the marketing up into like 6 pillars, which is in my book, where you've got professional referrers, non-professional, internal marketing, external marketing, verbal marketing, and online. So a lot of the coaching that I do is just teaching people how to use those pillars and coming up with ideas that's actually going to work for them in their area. Yeah, who is their ideal client? Who are their competitors? What's their strengths, weaknesses? So I actually enjoy it. It's fun. It's fun taking someone who reminds you of yourself, 10, 20, 30 years ago, and you can see that they're eager to learn. They just need to know where to look. Yeah, and I always think all the information you ever need in the world is out there. It's online somewhere. But the best thing about having a coach or a mentor is they can just speed up that process, and that's why I do it. So but I'm still writing. I'm still writing. I do talks at different places. I'm actually doing a talk over in Canada as well, so that'll be fun.
Oh, fantastic! That's good. International speaker. Is that the first time?
I'm doing one in Canada. I'm doing one in Powell River for the Chamber of Commerce, and one in Arizona on the way back home.
Wow, fantastic! That sounds really good. And I do. I know what you're talking about with working with different styles of business. I ran a marketing agency for 13 years. That's my background.
Yeah.
And I moved specifically into working with massage therapists because my wife ran a massage therapy business at the same time. And it's like we worked with hundreds of different types of businesses in my agency. But when it comes to massage, it's like you take all of this knowledge and you just sort of filter it through. It's all still the same up the top, but it's just different parts become more or less relevant to massage or to podiatry or to dentistry, whatever it is. It's like it's all kind of the same big picture stuff. It just gets a different color or a different flavor as it comes through to the different business underneath. So it's great to have that big picture concept of what makes business work and be able to apply it into individual people. I love it.
I think that's the thing. And sometimes people, they just keep, like I said before, if they're a massage therapist, they only go to massage conferences. They don't look outside of that, maybe there's more to the people I'm already talking to. I can learn something elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I go to a lot of different conferences. The one I'm going to in Arizona where I'm speaking, it's called Business Black Ops. And only about 50 people go to it, but we're all completely different professions. There's about 3 or 4 podiatrists that go, but there's bankers and there's writers and there's potato farmers. It's a different group, but we learn so much from each other.
Yeah, I love it. Sounds fantastic. So if someone is listening to this and they want to have a look at your book or listen to your podcast,
yes,
where would they go to get more information about what you're doing?
Probably best just go to my website, which is tysonfranklin.com.
Perfect.
Yeah,
we'll make sure we put a link.
Not .com.au, just .com.
Yeah, nice.
And through there, they can go to the podcast, which is It's No Secret with Dr. T. And then, the book details are there. But a lot of times if people want to order the book, I just direct them to like the online stores.
Yeah, like Amazon or something like that.
Yeah, I like Book Depository.
Perfect.
That's one of my favorites. Or you can go into your local bookshop, like the It's No Secret There's Money in Small Business. If you go into your local bookshop and just say to them, do you have this book? And they don't, they can order it in for you.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's great.
Because it is available at bookstores, but not every bookstore will carry it because it's, I'm not a recognized author. So, I'm not Tony Robbins.
Not yet. The Tony Robbins of podiatry.
Oh, Tony Robbins could write a cookbook and he'll sell 50 million of them. So
yeah, that's it.
And that's the thing with bookstores. It's until people order the book, and because a lot of people they'll just go online anyway. So, but if you've got a bookstore nearby, go in. Say you want to check out the book, and they can order it in for you. That's it. It's probably the fastest way of getting it too.
Yeah, I love it. Sounds great. Good on you, Tyson. Absolutely fantastic to have you on the show today. Really fascinating discussion. I love the tips you've been able to drop in there for our listeners. Thank you very much. Enjoy Canada. I imagine it will be a great holiday as well as some business stuff going on there. Well done. Thanks for coming on.
No, this has been fantastic. Thank you for having me on the show. This has been great.
Pleasure. We'll see you later.
Okay, bye.